you started as a cost accountant. Then you were in sales, marketing, quality process. Now you're doing diversity and inclusion. How do you reinvent yourself? And tell us, how many years have you been with Infosys now?
Okay, this is my 25th year at Infosys. I started the year. I've been in the industry now 36 years.
And she started when she was 2. So, and so how do you reinvent yourself? Because like cost accounting is as different from marketing as it can be. So did you just put your hand up and say, I'm going to do this? Or how did you reinvent yourself to get into those roles?
You know, Lakshmi, that's a fantastic question. I'm a person who gets bored every 2 days. I cannot tell you in the last 25 years, my boss is not here. I must have quit Infosys in my head 50 times, yeah, and rejoined the next morning. And I think one of the biggest things that has worked for me, and you know, I was just kind of so taken in by what Raghava said. You know, I just said, there's so much that's happening in the world, and people are trying to structure it for you. And you don't want to be structured. Yeah, you don't want to be boxed in. You want to go ahead. You want to explore stuff. So when I started my career, I started as a cost accountant. I was the only non-engineer in my house. Everybody, including mom, dad, everybody was an engineer. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll just figure out. You know, I was playing hockey. I'd actually played hockey for Karnataka about 12 years. And then I thought, I'm going to make hockey my passion. And, you know, my uncle was sent to counsel me. And my uncle would ask me, what are you going to become when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be a truck driver. So this went on for a few years. Initially, there was a lot of good, humorous response to this. Then finally, you know, they said, please talk sense into her head. Tell her she can't be a truck driver. So my uncle tried a different approach. He said, why do you want to be a truck driver? I said, you know, every time, my father was in the Air Force, and every year without fail, we took our car and we did a 30-day drive to some part of India. That was the time the family was together. We lived in that car. And every time we traveled, we would see trucks, you know, big lorries, interstate lorries, parked on the side of the national highways. And you had drivers, can you imagine, sleeping under the lorry and enjoying themselves. And I would ask my dad, I said, Dad, what about school for them? He says, they don't go to school. Nobody asks. What do their mom and dad say? Nothing. Oh my God, that's the life I want. That is what I want to do. I don't want to be asked a thing. I want to do my own thing, and I will decide what I want to do when I want to do it. And that caused me to, you know, in 2014, I stood up and I was speaking to Vishal Sikka, who was then the CEO, and I said, you know, I think we need to be really strategic about diversity and understanding the power of inclusion. He said, really? I said, I really believe in it. You know what he told me? Go ahead and figure it out. So I think I like that piece around stand up to be counted, put up your hand. You don't know if you're really going to be able to do it. But what the hell? If you didn't put up your hand, you would never know.
And, you know, talking about you being in women's hockey, you're a motorcyclist, you're a rallyist. I mean, there's a picture of her with a bicycle and so many things. And you've been voted the most happening woman in Bangalore by Women's Guild. How do you keep fit? I mean, do you run every day? What do you do to keep fit, to do all these sports?
Okay, you know, I just came back on Sunday. I did something called the Bangalore Chamundi Challenge. It's a distance cycling challenge that has to be completed with a particular time. You have to go up Chamundi Hill, come down 2 or 3 times, and then you finish the ride. And I think, Lakshmi, the biggest thing that has worked for me, Lakshmi, is sport has been an integral part of my life. And sport is my go-to place every single time. When I feel alone, when I feel depressed, you know, whenever I want to pick up, I just turn to sport. And I keep reinventing myself. So at 50, I realized I had not done enough sport. And I wore on my shoes and I said, I'm going to run. I'm going to do marathons. And within the first month, I tore ligament. I was in agony. And then I did what you do, Lakshmi. Look up and say, what is possible? And I said, marathons are possible. then went on ticking off each marathon in the international circuit that I wanted to participate in. I did that till about 54, till I had exhausted the marathon calendar, and then I said, I'm going to try a new sport. And that's when I took up a French sport. It's called randonneuring. It's distance cycling, 200 kilometers and more. And it's a fantastic place to be with yourself. Can you imagine? You're riding in the Western Ghats, you're riding in lonely Assam, just you, your thoughts, and of course your cycle. What a liberating space to be in. It just makes you come back and say, what on earth am I still doing here? It's time to move on.
And you've been, talking about diversity here, you've been at it since 2014, before it was a buzzword that it is now. And we are sitting here on a campus where there's a lot of women in technology, etc. What has been your observation? The same thing that allowed you to say, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, and go. Do you see that fearlessness in general, or is that something we need to enable in their environment? How do we make that happen for more women to come into themselves?
I think every woman, every man, every person has it in themselves to do something that they care about most. Oftentimes, we don't recognize the power that we have. So I'll tell you a little story, Lakshmi, in line with the INK philosophy. The year was 2008, and India was going through a very, very bad time. I don't know if you remember the Mumbai blasts, 2008, that shook us to the foundations. We were shell-shocked. That was a time, just before that, I had delivered the elevated road that all of you traveled on. It's the first elevated road on a national highway in India. And this particular project, Karnataka has this unique distinction of always having a government which is opposite to the government in the center. So this was a state highway, a state project on a national highway. You can imagine, it was chaotic. So we delivered that particular project, and just after that were these Mumbai blasts. At that time, Electronic City that all of you are sitting in is also one of India's richest industrial estates. So Mr. Chidambaram, the then Home Minister, gave a call to action, and he said, we must make sure every place in India which has economic importance must be secured. So ports, labs, everything was kind of getting, nuclear power stations, Electronic City also was getting secured. So the captains of industry here, there are 169 companies, they all put their heads together and they said, we must set up a security system that's going to be foolproof, that's multi-layered, that brings out the best in everything that we have. And how are we going to set this up? So I put up my hand, predictably, and I think they were feeling good about the fact that I delivered the road. So they said, okay, what the hell? I mean, we're all here. Okay, go ahead, take it up, they said. So I became the self-appointed head of the security think tank at Electronic City. My father was in the Air Force, so I had vicariously learned about the wars and gunfights and the works, reading a lot of books and stuff like that. I prepared my notes and came to the meeting, Lakshmi. The time was 3 p.m. The meeting was to start at 3 p.m. I came in at 2:45, arranged my notes, sat at the head of the table, felt really important. Nobody was taking photographs. We had the office assistant. He came up to me and he said, ma'am, I've prepared 50 cups of hot tea and coffee and ready to go the minute the guests arrive. I was so happy. I said, thank you so much. You saved my life. This is really going to look good. As soon as they walk in, we will give them tea, coffee, allow for some informal mingling before we start the meeting. At 3 o'clock, nobody had showed up. And of course, in India, in Bangalore, when nobody shows up, you say, oh, it's the traffic in Bangalore. At 3:15, there was not a soul in the room. So the assistant came up to me again and he said, ma'am, remember I told you about the 50 cups of tea and coffee? They're now 15 minutes colder. I said, don't worry about it. The guests will be here. Electronic City also, these one-ways and all this traffic jam, it's a mess. 3:30, nobody came. And I felt, I could just feel it in my heart that this particular meeting was not going to happen. And I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. I couldn't show him. He came up again. He said, ma'am, tea, coffee. I said, yes, get yourself a cup and get me a cup too. I needed it. And then I closed my eyes for a minute and I said, I can't cry in front of him. I felt so hurt. I felt so let down. I shut my eyes and I had this vision. I worked very closely with Mr. Mohandas Pai, I had this vision of Mohan actually speaking to Azim Premji. This is all in my mind, huh? Saying, we made a mistake, man. We should not have given this to a woman. We should have known this was going to happen. We just got excited because she delivered this elevated road. Anyway, and I opened my eyes with a start and I said, I'm not going to go back and listen to Mohan say that. And just at that moment, and I don't know what happened to me, Lakshmi, I wrote out the minutes of a non-existent meeting. And I said, I appreciate fully that security is not the subject of boardrooms, and that this is something that must be discussed in the field. Going forward, all our meetings will be in the field. I signed it off with a flourish, felt a little better. I went on to lead security for about 5 to 7 years. They gave me a tearful farewell when I stepped down, because you have to step down, no? You know, when you rotate out of the position. But it taught me a very, very important lesson. You know, I think many times, Lakshmi, we do it to ourselves. You know, I could have gone and told Mohan, teach the men how to behave. I mean, there is a thing called RSVP, right? I mean, they could have even told me that they were not coming. Where is the courtesy? I mean, these are service officers. I could have done all of that. I would have got his sympathy too. Yeah, because the whole world is out to get women. Yeah, to cut them to size, to destroy them. Yeah, and I would have got another dose of sympathy. But then I thought to myself, that's not what I want. Yeah? I said, the way I'm thinking about the world and the supposed treatment is all in my head. And I remembered Stephen Covey, who made this very, very famous statement in his book, 7 Habits, where he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your power to choose your response. So my wish for everyone, men and women, I have 2 sons, Lakshmi, so my sons are very terrified. They're saying, what's going to happen, Ma, to us if you continue with these lectures? So I said to everybody has the power to make the choice. I love that quote which says, what would you do if you're not afraid? Stand up, be unafraid, make that choice. Because if you didn't, you'd regret it for the rest of your life. That particular opportunity will not frame itself again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, one of the important things you said is you have to self-appoint yourself sometime. If somebody is not giving the job, make yourself the CEO of that company. Nobody will question you. And I want to leave us all with a thought that we refrain from the word I. We always want to say, you know, one of the quotes I honestly hate the most is, if you educate a boy, you educate a boy, but if you educate a woman, you educate a village. Why are you making her responsible to educate the village? Maybe it's okay for her to only educate herself and leave and do whatever she wants. So I think we put these false expectations on people, unconscious bias that you somehow have to save the world. And women also, even before anybody says anything, we put our hands up. Oh, yeah, I'll do it, you know. So one of the things my secretary taught me, our secretary taught me when I went to Intel and joined, was that she said, because I'm the only woman in the room, and I'm the only one 5'2", and I'm only the woman who's brown in the room, right? So, and women have this tendency to solve things immediately, like without even thinking. She said, if anyone says, where's the coffee, don't ever get up. That was the best lesson I got. She would say, where's the coffee? I would look at the next guy and say, can you go check it? You know, so don't ever put your hand up if you don't have to. You know, ask for what you want. Say, I want to do this. Be selfish. You don't need to save the village. If you save yourself, the village will be saved. So I wanted to wrap this up with conversation with Aruna, because she really epitomizes not just talk, but action. And the other thing, you've been very involved in sustainability also. If you look at Infosys, there's no plastic anywhere except, you know, maybe the top, that's also not plastic. Everywhere you see plastic bottles kept for water. There is no plastic here. Everywhere there are steel glasses. In the rooms where you stay, there are steel. So I'm just saying it's not just about an idea, but you have to make sure it goes to the last mile, last distance, last penny. So I really have to congratulate you, Aruna, that whatever you took on, and by the way, I went to Elsia. She was the president of it for a while. I think this is the only city that's a private city, right? Tell a little bit about how powerful Elsia is.
Okay, so in 2013, of course, LCI is the Industries Association that's been working very collaboratively with the government to just make lives better for all of us. You know, when the government created Electronic City, I think they were just looking at how far they could throw us. They say, go there and do your stuff. There were no roads, no electricity, no water, blah, blah, blah. So we started from scratch, and, you know, we had pioneers like Mr. Murthy and others who actually stood up and did a lot of this collectively to create this voice. So in 2013, every once in a while, you know, when there is a seasonal change, BBMP, that is the Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagar Palike, gets up and suddenly realizes that they need to do some territorial kabja. So they said there's this electronic city, you know, it's doing their own thing. I think we should make it part of the Bengaluru limits, municipal limits. So we went to court. And of course, with the industry backing us, we said there's no reason why BBMP should even touch electronic city when they've had nothing to do with setting it up in the first place, yeah, or even supporting it. We won the case. That was the time I was the president. So in 2013, we won the case, and we became Karnataka's first industrial township that is completely governed by the companies in Electronic City. There's a format, so we have 5 members from companies, we have 2 representatives from the panchayat, 1 from the government, etc. There's a combination, but essentially we collect our own taxes and maintain our own estate. But the nice thing here is we also have a lot of our sustainability credentials extending to the 169 companies in this 900-acre estate. But because we have a number of students, we've launched something called the Responsible Citizenship Credits Program, which is now part of their academic curriculum, where they can actually do a lot of projects that demonstrate responsible citizenship and actually get credits as part of their course, their management course.
You know, I was just blown away. I didn't even know that when I went to work with LCI. I just realized this, and it's just so unique. Everything we are standing on here, be it the city, be it the company, this is one of the first. So I just want to wrap up on something you said earlier, Aruna, is about sports. How sports ought to be an integral part of ourselves. So I have to wrap up by saying the story of my son. You know, my husband's a PhD in electrical engineering. I worked at Intel. We are like total nerds. So my son came to us and said, I don't want to study. I want to play football. And it's like a nail in the coffin for a South Indian parent when the child says, I'll play sports. I'm like, how will you make money? You know, that's the first thing that comes to your head. And my reaction to him was like, look, sports is so tough. There's only one Messi. You know, out of the billions of people, there's one Messi. How will you ever be that? And he said, I mean, he never backs out. He said, look, if somebody is studying computer science, you don't say, how can you be Bill Gates? You know, there are many things. You can do computer science and be a regular software engineer. You can be this, you can be that. So if I pursue sports, I can be a sports psychologist. I can be a physical therapist. I can be many things. I don't have to be Messi. And that really opened my eyes to how terrible parents we are. You know, our children are dreaming. Our children have no bounds. They are not in a shortage world that we grew up in. They are living in a world of abundance. And we are holding them back because we are bound by some old principles. And the reason we wanted to do this event at Infosys, this is the home of the youngest population. How many people do you have here, number of employees?
We have about 315,000 globally.
Not just here, like in Infosys. At Infosys, how many?
A little over 315,000.
And out of that, at least 50% are under 25, you would say?
I would say more. People like me bring up the average age, but you know, for a long time, when I joined, we said the average age of the Infosian was 24. It's steadily gone up to 24, 25. So I think when I leave, it will bring this age down once again.
So this is a home of really, you know, all, whether it's Wipro or Infosys, or these are all homes to the youngest minds with the best opportunity you have in this world. So we are streaming this. There's a lot of people watching it on stream. And our goal was that it should reach every young person to say, ignore us. We are like the worst people in this world. Anybody over 50, just ignore what they say. And if they have money, just ask for it, take it, and shut them out. But really, teach us. I really think it's people who are half our age are going to teach us. It's time for reverse mentoring. We need to be mentored by so many young people. And I still to this day thank my son for being so stubborn that he just gave us sleepless nights, that who knows what will happen to him. If I told my dad I wanted to do MBA, he was like, what is that? You know, we only know engineering, medicine. What is MBA? What do people do? None of us knew. So the world is beautiful. I really want to thank you.
And this actually goes across all of India. I mean, look at India's demography.
Yeah.
You know, with more than 65% below the age of 35, we are just waiting to happen. What are we doing sitting here? Just go out there and accelerate this action that you were speaking about.
We're going to do that soon. With that, I would love to have our team and all the speakers come up on the stage. Archana, you've been the Sutradhar. Please come on stage. Neha, Raghavar, Charles. Hey guys, I'm not going to ask you by all the speakers and the team. Anu and Nandini, you better come here now, because otherwise I'll have to drag you out.